The latest developments on the young and the restless suggest that Kyle Abbott is about to cross a dangerous line in his relentless pursuit of revenge against Victor Newman. Kyle is no longer merely angry, and he is no longer willing to wait for justice to unfold through ordinary channels. Everything Victor has done has pushed Kyle toward a darker and far more reckless state of mind, one in which patience feels like weakness and restraint feels almost like betrayal. As far as Kyle is concerned, Victor has spent far too many years manipulating people, destroying families, hiding behind his power, and escaping the consequences of his actions. This time, Kyle does not simply want Victor embarrassed, temporarily defeated, or forced to issue another meaningless denial. He wants Victor's entire world to begin collapsing around him, and he is prepared to do almost anything necessary to make that happen. Even more alarming, Kyle may be willing to negotiate with another criminal if that is what it takes to expose Victor's secrets and finally make him pay. The week of July 13th through July 17th begins with an important discussion between Kyle and Billy Abbott, and that conversation may reveal just how consumed Kyle has become by his need for revenge. Kyle will approach Billy because he believes Billy should understand what is at stake. Victor has interfered in Abbott's lives repeatedly, and Kyle may assume that Billy's long history of hostility toward Victor will make him the perfect partner. From Kyle's perspective, this is not merely a personal attack against one man. It is a battle for the dignity of the Abbott family, a battle against someone who has repeatedly used wealth, influence, and fear to control everyone around him. Kyle may try to convince Billy that the time has finally come to stop reacting to Victor's attacks and begin planning an offensive of their own. He may argue that Victor will never stop unless someone forces him to stop, and that the Abbotts will continue suffering as long as they allow Victor to dictate the terms of every conflict. However, Billy will not respond with the enthusiasm Kyle expects. Although Billy has many reasons to despise Victor, he is no longer eager to throw himself blindly into another dangerous war. His life is becoming more stable, and the family around him is growing stronger. For perhaps the first time in a long while, Billy recognizes that revenge can cost more than the satisfaction it delivers. He knows how easily a campaign against Victor can spiral out of control, and he understands that Victor is at his most dangerous when he feels cornered. Billy may see the anger in Kyle's eyes and recognize something painfully familiar. He may realize that Kyle is beginning to think the same way Billy once did during his most self-destructive moments, when the desire to win became more important than protecting the people he loved. That awareness could make Billy even more determined to keep his distance from Kyle's plan. Billy's refusal will not mean that he believes Victor deserves mercy. It will mean that Billy no longer wants to risk destroying his own future simply to punish an enemy who seems to thrive on chaos. He may warn Kyle that Victor has survived countless attempts to bring him down because his enemies often become emotional, impatient, and careless. Billy may point out that Victor knows how to provoke people until they make mistakes, and once they do, he uses those mistakes to present himself as the victim. Kyle, however, may interpret Billy's caution as cowardice. He may believe Billy has become too comfortable, too distracted by his growing family, and too afraid of losing what he has built. Kyle could resent the fact that Billy is choosing peace at the exact moment Kyle believes the Abbott family must fight harder than ever. The disagreement between them may deepen Kyle's sense of isolation. He will realize that Billy is not going to stand beside him, but instead of abandoning his plan, Kyle will become even more determined to prove that he does not need Billy's help. That is where the danger truly begins. Kyle's anger has reached a point where opposition no longer causes him to reconsider his choices. It only convinces him that he must move faster and operate more secretly. Every warning may sound like another excuse for allowing Victor to escape punishment, and every refusal may push Kyle toward methods he would once have rejected. He may tell himself that he is acting for Jack, for Diane, for the Abbott family, and for everyone Victor has harmed. But beneath those justifications is a deeply personal fury that Kyle can no longer control. Although Kyle may not initially know precisely how to destroy Victor, he will remain focused on one essential goal. He wants to make certain that Victor's downfall is approaching. He may begin examining the weakest points in Victor's defenses, searching for the one secret powerful enough to break through the wall of wealth, influence, and intimidation that has protected the Newman patriarch for so long. Kyle understands that Victor cannot easily be defeated in business. Victor has survived hostile takeovers, family rebellions, betrayals, and public scandals. He has resources that most people cannot match and loyalists who are willing to protect him even when they know he is wrong. A financial attack may wound Victor, but it would not necessarily expose him. Kyle needs something more serious, something that could place Victor in genuine legal danger and turn even his closest allies against him. That search will eventually lead Kyle to Patty Williams, who remains behind bars and carries information that could become devastating if she is willing to reveal it. According to the latest Y&R Spoilers, Kyle will attempt to strike a deal with Patty on July 15th, a development that matches the weekly preview footage showing Kyle visiting her in prison. The scene itself promises to be tense because Kyle is not walking into that prison merely to ask a few questions. He is entering an unpredictable negotiation with someone who has committed terrible acts, someone whose history with the Abbott family is filled with manipulation, obsession, and violence. Kyle knows Patty cannot be trusted, yet he may also believe she possesses the only weapon capable of piercing Victor's carefully constructed defenses. Kyle's decision to meet Patty marks a major shift in his character. He is no longer depending on law enforcement to uncover the truth independently, nor is he waiting for Victor to make another mistake. Instead, Kyle is actively seeking cooperation from a convicted criminal because he believes the truth she knows is more valuable than the danger she represents. He may justify the meeting by reminding himself that Patty was not acting alone. In Kyle's view, Victor used her vulnerability, encouraged her worst instincts, and paid her to carry out a cruel scheme. Patty may have committed crimes, but Victor allegedly helped create the circumstances that allowed those crimes to happen. Kyle will likely insist that Patty should not bear the full burden, while Victor continues living comfortably and pretending he had no role in the disaster. At the center of Kyle's argument is the disturbing story of what happened on the yacht. Victor paid Patty to use her seductive skills as part of a broader scheme involving Jack Abbott, whom Victor abandoned after kidnapping him. To Kyle, that revelation is not simply another example of Victor's manipulation. It is a direct assault on his father, his family, and the Abbott name. The thought of Jack being kidnapped, isolated, and deliberately placed in danger while Victor arranged for Patty to participate in an elaborate act of deception is more than Kyle can tolerate. It transforms his anger into something raw and deeply personal. Victor did not merely compete with Jack or attempt to humiliate him in business. He treated Jack's life and emotional well-being as pieces in a game. Kyle may press Patty to tell the police every detail of that ugly plot. He will want her to describe the payments, the instructions, the plan on the yacht, and Victor's role in Jack's kidnapping and abandonment. He may argue that confessing the full truth is the only way Patty can stop Victor from using her as a convenient shield. As long as she remains silent, Victor can continue denying everything and allow the world to view Patty as the sole architect of the crime. Kyle may try to convince her that Victor never cared what happened to her and never intended to protect her. In Kyle's version of events, Victor exploited Patty because she was useful, then left her to face the consequences once the plan began falling apart. This may be the point where Kyle attempts to transform Patty's resentment into cooperation. He knows she is unlikely to help simply because it is morally right. Patty may feel no loyalty to Kyle, and she may even enjoy watching the Abbott family suffer. Kyle, therefore, has to offer her something meaningful. He will need to prove that exposing Victor is worth the additional risk, especially since a complete confession could also force Patty to admit to more crimes. Patty may immediately recognize the weakness in Kyle's proposal. She could point out that revealing Victor's role would not erase her own responsibility. It might increase the charges against her, destroy any remaining chance of leniency, and invite Victor's retaliation. The threat of Victor's anger will be impossible to ignore. Patty knows better than most people how powerful Victor can be when he believes someone has betrayed him. She may question why she should make herself an even bigger target. Victor has money, connections, and a long history of finding ways to punish people who challenge him. Even from prison, Patty could fear that his influence might reach her. Kyle may insist that Victor's power is exactly why she must speak now, but those words alone will not be enough. Patty will want guarantees, leverage, and a clear benefit before she risks placing herself at the center of another battle between the Newmans and the Abbotts. Kyle certainly knows that he cannot arrange for Patty to escape, and he cannot simply purchase her freedom. Even in his most reckless state, he must understand that any promise of an illegal release would destroy his credibility and potentially make him a criminal as well. However, Kyle may believe the Abbott family's wealth and influence can still improve Patty's situation. He might offer to finance powerful legal representation, negotiate for better conditions, or use family resources to influence whether Patty remains in a traditional prison or returns to a more comfortable psychiatric treatment facility. He could argue that cooperation might allow her attorneys to seek a deal based on her willingness to expose the person who manipulated her. This is where Kyle's plan becomes morally complicated. He may claim that he is seeking justice, yet he is also using money and influence to pressure a vulnerable, unstable prisoner into giving him what he wants. His tactics may begin to resemble the very behavior he condemns in Victor. Kyle could tell himself that the difference lies in his purpose. Victor used Patty to harm Jack, while Kyle wants Patty to reveal the truth. Nevertheless, the line between justice and manipulation will become increasingly difficult to see. Kyle is still attempting to control Patty's choices by offering rewards and emphasizing threats, and he may be willing to shape the outcome of her confinement if she agrees to help him. Patty may sense Kyle's desperation and use it against him. She could make demands that Kyle never expected, forcing him to decide how far he is truly willing to go. She may refuse to provide a full statement until she has written guarantees from attorneys or clear evidence that the Abbott family can deliver what Kyle is promising. She may also withhold crucial details to maintain leverage, offering only fragments of the truth while studying Kyle's reactions. The more desperate Kyle becomes, the more power Patty gains in the negotiation. She may realize that Kyle needs her far more than she needs him, and that realization could allow her to control the entire encounter. Kyle's emotional state could make him especially vulnerable to manipulation. Every reference to Jack's suffering may make it harder for him to remain calm. Patty could deliberately mention details from the yacht or describe Victor's instructions in a way that intensifies Kyle's fury. She may test whether Kyle is acting strategically or simply reacting to pain. If she realizes revenge has clouded his judgment, she could push him into making promises that are impossible, unethical, or dangerous. Kyle may enter the prison believing he is the one offering the deal, only to discover that Patty is setting the terms. There is also the possibility that Patty's testimony will not be enough. Without physical evidence of the kidnapping scheme or the plan to seduce and manipulate Jack on the yacht, the entire case could become Patty's word against Victor's. That is a serious weakness, and Victor will undoubtedly exploit it. He could portray Patty as unstable, vindictive, and desperate to reduce her own punishment. He might claim Kyle pressured her into fabricating accusations and offered financial incentives in exchange for false testimony. Victor's attorneys could attack Patty's credibility and present Kyle's prison visit as proof that the Abbotts were attempting to manufacture a scandal. Kyle may understand this risk, but convince himself that Patty's statement will at least create pressure. Even if prosecutors cannot immediately build a case, the accusations could damage Victor's reputation and force authorities to investigate. Kyle may hope that once Patty begins talking, additional evidence will emerge. Records of payments, travel information, communications, or testimony from people involved in the yacht incident might support her story. Yet without such evidence already in his possession, Kyle is gambling on the belief that the truth will somehow validate itself once it is spoken aloud. That gamble may backfire spectacularly. Instead of bringing Victor down, Kyle could merely provoke him. Victor may see the prison meeting as a declaration of war, especially if he learns that Kyle is trying to convince Patty to implicate him in kidnapping, conspiracy, and manipulation. Victor is unlikely to respond with fear. He may respond with rage, and his retaliation could be immediate. He could target Kyle's position, his reputation, his business interests, or the people Kyle loves. Victor has always believed that attacks against him justify extreme measures, and Kyle's attempt to recruit Patty may give Victor all the justification he needs to strike back without restraint. Victor may also recognize the emotional weakness driving Kyle's actions. He could exploit Kyle's love for Jack and Diane, knowing that any threat to them would force Kyle to lose focus. Victor might not need to prove Patty is lying. He may simply need to create enough chaos around Kyle that the plan collapses before it gains momentum. By attacking Kyle's credibility or exposing the secret deal, Victor could turn Jack and Diane against their own son. That possibility may be more dangerous than any legal counterattack because Kyle's entire campaign is supposedly being carried out in defense of his family. Jack and Diane Jenkins Abbott are unlikely to approve if they discover that Kyle has been secretly negotiating with Patty. Their reaction could be explosive. Patty is not simply an informant with a criminal past. She is a deeply painful part of the Abbott family's history, and any contact with her threatens to reopen wounds that have never fully healed. Jack may be horrified that Kyle is willing to place himself in Patty's orbit. He may fear that Kyle's obsession with punishing Victor is exposing the family to another round of manipulation and violence. Jack could also feel guilty, knowing that Kyle is taking these risks because of what happened to him. Diane's anger may be even more intense. She may see Kyle's prison visit as reckless, disloyal, and dangerously naive. Diane understands how quickly unstable people can turn a private arrangement into a public catastrophe. She may accuse Kyle of risking Jack's safety and the entire Abbott family's future for a revenge plan with no guarantee of success. Diane could insist that Patty is capable of twisting the truth, changing her story, or using Kyle's desperation to escape accountability. From Diane's perspective, Kyle is not controlling the situation. He is handing Patty another opportunity to enter their lives. Kyle, however, may refuse to accept their objections. He may argue that Jack and Diane are allowing fear to protect Victor. He could insist that someone must be willing to take risks, especially when the legal system has repeatedly failed to hold Victor accountable. This disagreement may create a painful fracture inside the Abbott family. Jack may try to stop Kyle. Diane may demand that he end all contact with Patty, and Kyle may accuse both of them of surrendering before the fight has truly begun. The more they pressure him to abandon the plan, the more Kyle may believe they do not understand the depth of his anger. That emotional divide could leave Kyle completely alone at the worst possible moment. Billy has already refused to participate. Jack and Diane may condemn the scheme, and Patty may be using the situation to secure benefits for herself. Yet Kyle's pride may prevent him from admitting that the plan is unraveling. He may double down, convinced that retreating would allow Victor to win. What began as a campaign for justice could become a desperate attempt to justify every reckless decision Kyle has already made. The most troubling part of Kyle's strategy is that revenge may gradually become more important to him than the truth itself. At first, he wants Patty to reveal what really happened. But if her story lacks evidence or contains contradictions, Kyle may face a terrible choice. He can step back and admit the case is not strong enough, or he can continue pushing because he needs Victor to be guilty in a way the authorities can prove. The second path would drag Kyle into increasingly dangerous territory. He could begin pressuring Patty to make her statement more dramatic, ignoring inconsistencies or hiding details that weaken the accusation. Even if Kyle never intends to fabricate evidence, his desperation could make him overlook the difference between building a case and constructing a narrative. Victor, meanwhile, may take advantage of every weakness. He could publicly dismiss Patty's claims while privately warning Kyle that he has no idea what he has unleashed. Victor may understand that Patty is unpredictable, and he may know secrets about her involvement that Kyle has not yet discovered. It is possible that Patty's full confession would damage more people than Kyle expects, including Jack or Diane. Victor may use that uncertainty to intimidate Kyle, suggesting that exposing the yacht scheme will not produce the simple victory Kyle imagines. Every secret connected to the past may contain another secret beneath it, and once Patty begins talking, no one will be able to control where the story ends. Kyle's attempt to make a deal with Patty may therefore become the opening move in a far larger conflict. Instead of securing Victor's downfall, Kyle could trigger a chain reaction that places the Abbotts under enormous pressure. Patty may reveal enough to create suspicion, but not enough to guarantee a conviction. Victor may retaliate before investigators can establish the truth. Jack and Diane may turn against Kyle's methods, while Billy may be forced to intervene when he realizes the family is beginning to fracture. Kyle could find himself trapped between a criminal who wants leverage, a father who wants him to stop, and an enemy who is preparing to destroy him. Even so, Kyle may remain convinced that he has no other option. In his mind, doing nothing would be worse. Every day Victor remains unpunished feels like another insult to Jack's suffering. Kyle may tell himself that justice has always required someone willing to take the first dangerous step. He may believe the risks are temporary, and that once Victor is exposed, his family will understand why he acted. But revenge has a way of changing the person who pursues it, and Kyle may not recognize how far he has fallen until he can no longer return to the man he was before. The prison meeting on July 15th could become the decisive moment. Kyle will likely enter with confidence, prepared to offer Patty a future that seems preferable to her current situation. He will emphasize Victor's betrayal, remind her that she has been left to absorb all the blame, and insist that telling the truth is her only chance to regain control. Patty, however, may not respond with fear or gratitude. She may study Kyle carefully, recognize the rage beneath his promises, and realize that Victor Newman is no longer the only powerful man attempting to use her. By the time the conversation ends, Kyle may believe he has secured Patty's cooperation. She may agree to speak with investigators or provide a detailed account of Victor's role in the yacht plot. Kyle could leave the prison convinced that Victor's downfall has finally begun. Yet Patty's agreement may come with hidden conditions, and Kyle may not know whether she is telling the truth, manipulating him, or planning to use both the Abbotts and the Newmans against each other. The deal may look like Kyle's greatest breakthrough, but it could actually be the mistake that pulls his entire family back into the nightmare they thought they had escaped. Kyle wants Victor to pay, and he is willing to walk into a dangerous alliance to make that happen. What he may not yet understand is that dealing with Patty is not the same as controlling her. Once she begins revealing secrets, making demands, and reopening old wounds, Kyle may discover that revenge has created an enemy on every side. Victor will be furious, Jack and Diane will feel betrayed, Billy will fear the worst, and Patty will hold the power to destroy the plan with a single change in her story. Kyle may be preparing to bring down Victor Newman. But the real question is whether Victor will fall first or whether Kyle's secret deal will destroy the Abbott family before it ever reaches the police.